I started making plans to move to Japan when I was 8 or 9 years old because I had this pen pal who would send me presents and was teaching me Japanese by mail. And I actually followed through. I studied abroad in Tokyo when I was in college. And as soon as I graduated, I took a job as a community coordinator in a town in northern Japan. And I worked in this community center that was in the middle of the woods, and it looked like this big futuristic cabin that was full of windows, but also had a gymnasium and some meeting rooms and a library. And I worked at the front of the center in this tiny office with all of my coworkers, and all of our desks were pushed together into one giant communal desk. And one day, maybe 3 weeks into this job, I was working at this communal desk when 2 of my coworkers came rushing in yelling, "Sparrow bees! Sparrow bees! We found a nest in the rafters, in the roof, and we have to get everybody out." And everyone started panicking around me, and I just sat there like, what the hell is a sparrow bee? And one of my coworkers must have caught my confusion because she came and sat next to me and said in a low voice, "Oh, you don't have sparrow bees in your country. Sparrow bees are very dangerous." And then my boss chimed in and he said, "Oh, yeah, you need to watch out. If one stings you, you're going to the hospital. And if you get stung 3 times, you're going to die. And also, you need to evacuate all of the meeting rooms." So I was learning very quickly how serious these sparrow bees were. So I stood up and I ran from meeting room to meeting room saying, "Excuse me, everyone, we have sparrow bees and you'll all need to leave the building." And it was very easy. Turns out very easy to clear a building when you have sparrow bees. So I run back to the office, and my colleagues are coming back from different areas of the building where they had evacuated people. And I was thinking, yes, this is great. We got everybody out, and now we did a great job, and now it's time for us to leave. But no. The desk that we all worked at was covered in canisters of bee spray and butterfly nets, and 3 of my male coworkers were busy putting together makeshift protective gear. So it was very clear that no exterminator had been called and that none of us will be leaving. Now, I don't know how these 3 coworkers got chosen, but they were putting on dishwashing gloves and they were tying towels around their mouths so that the sparrow bees didn't fly in. And one of them had a butterfly net over his head, and he was smiling broadly, saying, "Oh, this will never work. I'm going to die, and this will not work." And everybody else agreed because our boss sent them out to the supply shed to go and get better protective gear. Now, I should mention here that the city hosts a pretty major Halloween party every year, and that stuff is all kept in that shed. And so I'm watching from the window as the first coworker comes out, and he's wearing a rubber Frankenstein mask. And then the next one comes out, and he's a gorilla. And then the third one comes out, and he is a wolfman. And together, they are just a monster mash. And they'd also pulled out a super long, unstable looking bamboo pole. And we could see them making plans of how they were going to take care of the sparrow bees. And it looked like step 1 was knock the nest down with that big pole. Step 2 was catch the nest in a butterfly net. And step 3 was unclear. So we're watching from the inside, and they are trying to get themselves rallied up. They're saying, "Okay, let's go, let's do this." And then they start towards the nest, and then they back up and they say, "Oh no, this is so stupid. We're gonna die because this is so stupid." And then they would do it again. And finally, they rush the nest, and Frankenstein starts beating at the nest like it's a piñata with that big bamboo pole, and he hits it and it dislodges, and somehow the gorilla catches it in the butterfly net. And then the wolfman unloads a whole can of bee spray into the net, and then they drop it to the ground and start smashing the nest with the bamboo pole and with their feet, and they're all screaming and we're cheering. And then they pick up the nest and the wolf man runs with it towards the dumpster, and Frankenstein holds the dumpster open. The wolf man throws the entire thing in. They slam the door, and all three of them run back to the office, and they're running in a zigzag because, and I don't know if this is true, sparrow bees can only follow you if you run in a straight line. And they get back, and we welcome them like heroes. And they had somehow managed to grab sections of the bee's nest. And so we were looking at it, and there's these little sparrow bee larvae wriggling in the nest that we're kind of examining while those three are regaling us with the details of their heroics. And this only lasts a couple of minutes because right away we settle back down. We sit back at the communal table, and we start working again as if nothing ever happened and no one ever mentioned it again. And then 15 years later, I'm at a different desk, this desk, all alone. And I get a meeting invite from my boss that just says update. And we're a few months into the pandemic, so I know that I'm about to get laid off. And I have 20 minutes before this meeting starts. So I thought about those three office heroes and how they took on the very dangerous sparrow bees with joy and with creativity, and they won. So I go to my closet and I take out a T-Rex costume and I put it on and I sign into Zoom, and I made them fire a dinosaur. And you can't always show up on your toughest day as a stoic hero. Sometimes you have to be a Frankenstein or a wolf man or a gorilla or a dinosaur.